Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Chalk Talk. I am Armando Marsal, and as always, I have Bobby Gomes with me. How's it going, bud?
Going well, going well. We don't have the greatest weather here, but I heard you don't have great weather down there. So
I'm actually fine. I've been pretty safe. It was much further north than where I'm at. I'm pretty much located all the way here. It's south. So I was not affected, fortunately, but we are definitely praying for those who were. Hopefully, everyone's safe. I know it was a pretty vicious storm. I've seen these things over and over throughout my entire life. We get impacted by that, but from what I've seen so far, it looks like some damage or whatnot. But all we can do is hope and pray that everyone is safe and everyone got by this. This is a cool week, man. We got I think it's a pretty cool Thursday night slate here. Giants and the Eagles. What are your thoughts here on this game to kick it off this week?
I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, just from a perspective of you have Odell chasing a record. I think it's 114 yards. He needs to hit some milestone. So I think Drew Brees, like we've seen on Monday night, basically having to chase that record, and it was kind of the term and play, went for 40 points. They stopped the game. It was like a big thing. And I don't know. So it's just situations like that I think we can take advantage of, especially on the showdown slate.
Yeah, I agree. I actually like this game quite a bit. The total has moved down a point. It's 44 over under now. The Eagles are 1 point favorites on the road here. They have a 22.5 implied team total. The Giants have a 21.5 implied team total. Eagles have been stout against the run this season, but that will not prevent me from playing someone like Saquon Barkley. I think his usage is just through the roof. I think he is matchup proof, and his involvement in the pass game really, takes away from when you have a bad run, a run matchup. So I still think he's a perfectly fine player. Are you on board there with me?
Yeah, no, I think he's a good play. It's a couple interesting spots in this game, I would say. That's what I figure out for
I agree.
For the Thursday Monday slate. If you're playing cash, like usually you don't hit the Thursday game. You wait till Sunday. You get all the inactives. You let other people kind of play the Thursday night guys. But there's spots in this game that I think you could attack. Not that I would.
Yeah.
I'm just definitely.
I agree.
Game viable.
I agree totally there. And how are you handling this running back situation for the Eagles? Because it's a lot of people, Wendell Smallwood. Is it Corey Clement? What are you going to do? I'm giving Smallwood the nod here simply because, Clement's coming off of quad injury. We don't know how if he's 100%. We don't know his role. How are you treating this backfield?
So I liked Smallwood last week, and I like Smallwood again this week. That was one of the guys that was kind of trying to hit on because he gets the work at 4K. Like, he's definitely a play, and he's definitely, I don't know, wouldn't say he's cash game viable, but if he's going to get the work, like, he's a fringe cash game play, but you really want to risk playing a running back on a Thursday slate if you're playing cash. The showdown slate makes a ton of sense. Like, just plug Smallwood in, I feel like, or get him in somehow.
Yeah. Would you play him in the captain spot? I mean, I think you can do so much with your lineup if you take that, approach.
No, yeah.
I just don't know if there's enough upside,
You can definitely go there. I think the Giants are rostering Cody Latimer in their three wide receiver set. So, like, he's another guy that you can take a flyer on in the showdown. I would say he's not a great play, but it's the showdown slate. Like, we're trying to be as different as possible. I don't hate Smallwood. I like Ertz, I like Odell, I like Shepard. The line move down. Defenses are always in play. Eagles D.
Yeah. I mean, if you like Odell and I'm going to give you the question you gave me last week when we were on the Sunday show, and you asked me if you like Odell and you like Shepard, does that mean you like Manning tonight?
Yeah. I wish I like it. I didn't. Oh man,
We should have played him, huh? We should have played him. We talked about it.
Everyone
we talked about it.
On Sirius XM, they were like, "Yeah, do you want to play?" So you don't like the wide. You'd rather Odell and not Julio and Antonio. And I'm like, yeah, I think I like Odell at 7%. Like, and it would have been the play. I just didn't play enough of it. I had oh man, Gurley. I don't even want to get into
It's tough, man. It really is tough when you have, Julio in such a good spot last week and Juju Smith-Schuster in such a good spot. Odell was in a fine spot. It wasn't a bad spot, but these guys were just the game environment was expected to be better in that other game.
Exactly.
So it's kind of tough to deviate, but in tournaments, those are the kind of risks you have to be willing to take if you want to take a tournament now. At the end of the day,
that was the way I was thinking about it. There was Antonio, Julio, and Juju, and then right under Antonio was Odell, and Odell was going to come in at 7%, and it was just like it seemed like just take Odell, let everyone go every other way, and just hope Odell kind of outscores all of them, which ends up happening.
Which ended up being the case. Yeah, it was one of those situations, man, where it's
yeah,
it happens, man. It definitely happens. But we did talk about it. We did call him out. We did think he was a good tournament pivot away from some of these other guys. We just didn't do it enough in our lineups to make it, as successful of a Sunday as we would have hoped. To be honest with you, I got crushed last week. It just that game was disappointing. That Atlanta-Pittsburgh game it was disappointing. It had a lot of exposure there. So
I was going to play in that game, Connor. I ended up playing McCaffrey to run it back, and I don't know.
And it's funny because I've been pretty much was mentioning it all week. Connor. I ended up Schuster instead of Connor, and that obviously didn't pan out. But
he had it early. He had like 13 points, and then he finished with 13.
I know, and then all of a sudden, that's it, all done. It's like what just happened, man? So, but yeah, I mean, it happens every weekend. It really does happen every weekend. So, I think it's interesting. I have a couple lineups tonight in the showdown, and I got Smallwood as my captain in a good percentage of them. I think that's a really strong way to build your rosters because you can fit in guys like, Barkley, who I think I think you should be playing tonight. Odell Beckham, obviously in a good spot here. Ertz is in a good spot. Wentz and Eli, I think, are fine. I think this game has sneaky shootout potential, although Vegas thinks differently. But then again, like you said, sometimes you got to look at these numbers and trust them, and maybe playing defenses is the way to go. Are you finding yourself – I mean, I don't know how much volume you're putting in tonight. I never put a ton of volume into these little slates like this. But I try to just stick to one roster construction. So Vegas is telling me play defenses, maybe play some kickers here or whatnot. But I'm going with my instincts here, my gut, and just say, okay, this game has shootout potential. I've seen both of these defense struggle. I know the Giants are getting some key pieces on defense back today, but I still think this game at the end of the day will probably shoot out here. So I'm going to treat it as such. How are you approaching it? Like, are you going to do the same, or are you looking at this Vegas numbers and taking that?
I'm kind of taking Vegas numbers into consideration right now. As of right now, it change in 30 minutes.
Okay. So at the end of the day, you're pretty much, going to play, you're not going to go all in on the offenses on both, stack offenses and then just leave defenses out. So you're going to be playing defenses into your combos here?
In this lineup at some point and try to correlate it with Smallwood.
Okay. And then when you do something like that, are you playing Ertz as well? Because I think Ertz might be in my opinion, the must play tonight. That's kind of my opinion. I think considering his price, I know the Giants have been good against tight ends this season thus far, but this is not generally a defense that does well against tight ends.
They haven't had the proper matchups to kind of test that. We streamed tight ends versus the Giants last year, so they're getting Zach Ertz, like he's one of the premier tight ends in the league. I think it's a good time to take a shot and try to test this defense and see it. Zach Ertz is coming off a great game last week and they get 30 DK points, so yeah, no issue with that.
All right. Any final thoughts here? I mean, I think we've talked about this, Thursday night game quite a bit. It's a division game, guys. So just remember that this is something you have to consider. That these teams know each other really well here. So it can really go any way. I'm gonna go against what I'm seeing from the Vegas numbers here. I am seeing 72% of the bets are going on the over here. So I kind of place some emphasis on that. I think that's important because even though the numbers are moving in the wrong direction here, I think a lot of the betting is on the over. So I still think this game could shoot out. I'm interested to see what happens here, but I'm going to be a little bit more bullish on the offenses than I would be on the defenses. However, if you're trying to be contrarian, this is a home game for the Giants. So maybe taking a Giants defense who is it? Carey's coming back tonight, right?
Olivier Vernon.
Vernon, sorry, not Carey. Vernon's coming back tonight, right?
Yeah.
From what I read. So that's a big piece of their defense coming back.
No, it's probably their best defensive player outside of Janoris Jenkins, I would say.
Correct. And I'm staying away from Alshon Jeffrey tonight, man. I really am. I think they're going to move him around. They might line him up in the slot to get free, but he just hasn't done well against Janoris Jenkins. So he's probably the guy I'll be fading in this contest.
Like it would be a bad matchup for him. So
yeah.
The 800.
He's pretty pricey. Let me see here. He's more than that, I think. I may be wrong here.
I'm talking about on the regular slate, not the showdown.
Oh yeah. No, I don't know. I typically don't. I typically don't play the Thursday all the way through Monday slate. But he is 8K on the showdown. I think that's fair, but and I also think that's going to force like ownership on him because it is a fair price. You got guys like Barkley, Odell, Wentz, and things like that over 10K. So you're going to need to go to like 8K, and even lower to the running backs to get some ownership there. So any final thoughts on this game here? I think we've covered it pretty well, but I'm ready to roll on to the Sunday main slate if you are.
Yeah, let's roll.
All right, man. We do this every week. We talk about the Sunday main slate, but we're going to change it up. We're going to break down the game, the slate game by game now on the Thursday night show. So, guys, enjoy it. Let's jump right into this and jump into the first game where I think a lot of ownership is going to go to, and that is the Falcons hosting the Buccaneers. 57.5 over under here. The Falcons have a 30.25 implied team total. The Bucs have a 27.25 implied team total here. Give me your thoughts on this game, Bob, because I really think this is one of a couple games you really want exposure to. I like both teams quite a bit. Talk to me and tell me what you think here.
I'm kind of like in a different state of mind. I kind of see it more as last week. I think there'll be a core play in this game like there was with James Conner. I think if you're playing tournaments, you kind of let guys chase people here. And then you go and you find another game that can kind of probably – I just think this line's wrong. Like 58, it dropped to 57. I think it's going to go under. I wouldn't mind like as a – just game theory play, jumping on Julio and Matt Ryan if they were low owned, but I highly doubt it with the total being what it is. The cash game play I like is Cameron Brate. He's at 3,700 on DraftKings.
Yeah.
I don't love Jameis, but Jameis has had really big numbers versus Atlanta. So I think he's definitely a cash game consideration, probably be one of the highest owned quarterbacks in cash. I'd rather go up to a guy like Jared Goff maybe at 6K and just try to get a piece of Denver's implied team total of 29. That would be a way like I kind of pivot in tournaments, I guess. I'm not the biggest Jameis Winston guy. We know Atlanta really struggles with pass-catching running backs. Does that mean Jacquizz Rodgers, who's in basic narrative street central in this position, is he someone that we're rostering? Like, I don't trust Jacquizz Rodgers. Like, I don't want to play him. I'm not really high on Winston. Like, I know he likes to throw to Brate. I know he likes to throw to Humphreys, but like in terms of tournaments, like I just don't really like. People are Mike Evans going to be the highest owned wide receiver on the slate. Like, I'll fade that. You know what I mean? Like I can find spots to fade that. So I don't know. I'm not as high on this game as I think other people probably are.
I actually think there's several interesting spots here. Obviously Matt Ryan's priced up. This is a phenomenal matchup. We know how bad the Bucks have been against the pass this season, and they do funnel to the pass. You pointed out in week 1, and so far it's been true where they're pretty good up front, but they do struggle here in the secondary. So I think Matt Ryan's in a great spot. I'm going back to – at this point, I feel like I'm pot committed here in Julio Jones. So I'm going to go here. 7,900 seems like just too cheap. I know he hasn't gotten in the end zone, but if it makes any difference, he has scored 10 touchdowns in 12 career games against the Bucks. I know last week's matchup was phenomenal for him, but this week's it's just as good. He gets Carlton Davis, who ranks well below average on Pro Football Focus. Julio Jones has a 48% advantage rating here. He's still amongst the league's leaders in air yards. He leads the team in targets. It's only a matter of time where we're going to see some positive regression here for Julio Jones. And so long as the matchup is as good as it is this week for him, I'm going to keep playing him. I've committed too many chips here to fold my hand now with Julio Jones. So I'm going to play him. I think he's going to be popular, but I think he's chalk.
He's chalk, yeah. I'm looking at it.
You see, I rather play the Julio Jones chalk than the Mike Evans. And I think both are perfectly fine plays. But I rather just play the Julio Jones chalk. I'm getting $200 discount. It doesn't seem like a lot, but you can sometimes make something happen with $200 on your salary here. So I like it a lot. I also like Mohamed Sanu here. He started off the season slow. The first 2 games really struggled, but since has been pretty productive, scoring over 15 DraftKings points in each of the last 3 games. He's still second in this roster in targets here. He's 17% of the target share for Atlanta. So he's under 5K. The game environment should be favorable for him. He's playing out of the slot. I believe it's 75% of the time. The Bucks really struggle against slot receivers here. So I'm willing to give Sanu a go. If I'm game stacking here, and if I'm playing, Winston, Mike Evans, great. I wouldn't mind running it back with Julio Jones and Sanu if you're trying to game stack. But I just think these guys are in prime spots. I don't hate Austin Hooper. And we got to talk about Tevin Coleman. I know the Bucks are tough against the run, but if Freeman is out, are you going to be considering Coleman here?
I think you have to consider him just with the game environment. But it's just like I don't love Freeman. Like I don't love Coleman. I'm sorry. I just don't. Like I just don't. This game has a lot of the game environment looks great. It all looks awesome. And it was kind of the situation last week with Pittsburgh and Atlanta. And I just I don't think I understand that the Bucks funnel. So yeah, I get that. But it's just is Sarkisian going to get Julio the ball? I want to see Julio get in the end zone. You know what I mean? When's that going to happen? Or it's week 6 now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we've been waiting for it all season. I was about to curse, but but we've been waiting for all season. So I agree, man. You got to think that. Well, how many weeks have you invested in Julio now?
I haven't done it, so I'm not.
No, you haven't done it. Okay, so you're not pot committed like I am. I'm pot committed.
It wasn't end up. Yeah, I haven't really done it.
I'm doing it again this week, man. It's a smash spot. We haven't seen it. He's been in good spots. He hasn't, taken advantage of it. It's only a matter of time before he's going to have that game. It is Julio Jones. We've seen it in the past.
Everyone said last year, and they waited till week 11. So just letting you know ahead of time.
No, I know.
It's not Kyle Shanahan that's running this is the offensive coordinator here anymore.
And that's a huge difference. That is a huge difference.
And it's obviously this offense is not the same offense. And Jameis is a quarterback running it back. He's just not. He's had good numbers versus Atlanta, but in actuality, do you love Jameis? Are you confident in starting Jameis? I'm not.
I am, but I know he comes with built-in, volatility. I mean, it is what it is. He's a volatile quarterback, but I know the upside's to the roof. And
Russell Wilson at 500 less, 400 less.
Oh, you see, that's where we differ big time because it's just that offense hasn't shown anything, and we know that at least Bucks are going to be chasing points because their defense is so bad. So it's going to force Winston to throw.
I get what you're saying, but I still want to play. I'd rather play Baker.
Like when you're looking at upside here, I guess career-wise, yeah, you look at Wilson, but in this specific situation, I think there's so much. I think Winston's ceiling this week is so much higher. Given the situation.
He's going to throw 2 picks. 2.
He is going to throw 2 picks.
He's going to throw.
He is, absolutely. He's going to throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like,
I hope he does that. I don't know. It's just like
I'm just saying. Like, those are. He could even. I mean, Case Keenum threw 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions week 1. He scored over 30 DraftKings points.
Red Bull.
We should. I know you drink that. I should be doing. What is it? Yeti. There you go. And it's water in here, guys. Nothing else, just water.
This is. It's water.
So I'm pretty bullish on Atlanta. I like running it back with the Bucks. I think this is a good game script. I can see where fading it in tournaments might make sense because of ownership. I think you can get creative with your lineups enough to still plug in some of these guys. Anything else here for this game before we move on to the next game?
I think Julio at 7,900 is a fine play. That would be the one roster I'd have in this game is Julio. That's it.
And I do want to mention Hooper. I mentioned him last week. I didn't play him a ton, but I want to mention Hooper. This is a good game environment for him. I rather pay up for Brait than a Hooper. But if you find yourself, short 200, that's the difference between playing a Mike Evans and playing a Julio Jones. Those $200 difference can be between Brait and Hooper. So, food for thought there. Final thoughts here. You mentioned before we move on, you mentioned the Bucks backfield. I think it's interesting. It's just I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. It's very difficult to pinpoint who's going to be the running back that benefits from the matchup. So you have to be taking a huge chance. I haven't seen enough upside from any of the running backs in this backfield this season to take that kind of chance and take that kind of risk. So I'm with you. It's just too tough to point out who's going to benefit here. I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Ronald Jones has a big game. I wouldn't be surprised if even Barber comes out and has a pretty good game here. But I'm not banking on it, and when I'm unsure of something, I just rather just stay away from it. I can work out.
Tilt the rock a little more. I don't know.
I think they should because their defense is so bad that I think they should try to keep opposing offenses off the field. I agree with you. Problem is, they fall behind like pretty much first drive of the game, so it's just difficult. And they fall behind by a good amount.
The action in this game?
Huh?
Does Fitzpatrick see action?
No, unless Jameis Winston gets hurt.
Or he throws picks early and
he's going to throw 2 picks. They're going to leave him in there. He's going to finish the day with like close to 400. The guy's going to sling it like 45 times. Like, I think.
I hope he doesn't. I'm not playing him. What do you mean by decision?
I don't know if I'm going to be all in. I'm not saying I'm going to be all in on him by any means.
I have to consider him in cash, and I'm like, I don't want to, but like
he's too cheap in my opinion. I have a pivot play that I like quite a bit from him. I just don't know who to pair him up with yet. No, that's not him. We'll get into this guy. I just don't know who to pair him up with because his one-on-one, his top receivers one-on-one matchup is pretty tough. And I actually wanted to get your insight, and we'll get to that game. Trust me, we're going to get to that game because I had some questions for you in that game.
I have a question. 200 more. Sean McVay and Jared Goff and cash, or Jameis Winston and whoever the Bucs field.
Come on, give me. It's
an easy answer for me.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's Goff. They are playing Denver. They funneled to the pass
because of the environment.
But I think in cash you're looking for a floor. I agree with you. I think Goff has a safer floor, but I'm looking for upside in tournament. So in cash, I probably wouldn't play Winston in cash.
I'd probably what's Ryan's own? Like Ryan would be the one that I'd play in tournaments out of this game.
Well, he's going to absorb a ton of ownership, I think. Well, actually, you know what? Maybe not because of his price.
He's only 10% where on Rotograph.
His price, I have to open that up here on Fantasy Labs, but his price might, translate to lower ownership than it technically. They do.
Trubisky, Taylor Gabriel, and Burton.
No, not Trubisky. Listen, don't chase those points, guys.
That's what we called. They played Tampa. We said they were going to funnel, and that was the stack we gave, right? So,
I'm going to have exposure to Matt Ryan for sure. I'm not fading Matt Ryan just because
I'm saying
he's at home. He plays much better at home against. Listen, Matt Ryan and Julio Jones stacks are in order. In fact, after the show, I'm going to write my stacks article. That's going to be the first one I start the article with.
Okay.
All right. So you'll be able to find it at footballdiehards.com at some point tomorrow. But Matt Ryan and Julio Jones stacks are definitely in order. The guy I'm probably staying away from on both. I'll give you a guy I'm probably staying away from on both offenses. Calvin Ridley and Deshaun Jackson.
Ridley's on the track, man. Ridley has how many touchdowns at home?
I know. It's a great matchup for him. But listen, the slot receiver is the one that really finds a ton of success here against the Bucs, and that's Sanu. He's lining up there 75% of the
comments that Ridley has. Ridley has that upside with that speed, man. Sanu don't have that, and then Sanu's competing.
Well, what is the price difference? That's what we gotta look at. What is the price difference here? I'll tell you right now.
No, yeah, it's $2K. It's almost it's about
it's $1,500, and Sanu's questionable. He's gonna play, I think. I don't think he's gonna, sit this one out. But
Ridley's way too expensive. Forget that.
That's what I'm saying. It's a price thing. And when you look at Jackson, he's $5,900. They're both in great spots. They both have slate breaking upside. But I just feel like they're a little bit overpriced.
Houston doesn't throw the ball to Deshaun Jackson, so
at all.
After back.
At all. I agree 100% there.
And then he'll go touchdowns and 100 yards.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. just go ahead. Yeah. It's definitely gonna happen. All right, we've spent a ton of time on this game. I'm ready to move on to the next. If you are, any final thoughts before we move on to the next game? I think we did a pretty good job of breaking that first game down. It's one that people want to hear. So.
No, that's pretty much it. That's fine. I think we hit on it in the next one.
Carolina heading to Washington to take on the Redskins. This game has a 45 over-under. Redskins are a point favorite here. They have a 23 implied team total. The Panthers have a 22 implied team total. This is one of those games that I don't have a ton of exposure to. I'm never going to talk anyone off of McCaffrey. You can plug and play him. I'm never going to talk anyone off of Cam Newton. He's fairly priced at 6,100. However, it's just not a game that I'm, having a ton of exposure to here. Not one I'm, going out of my way to target. Do you have a different stance here for this game?
I have a different stance. I think this is a pretty interesting game for tournaments, especially with prices on Funchess at 4,900. You have Cam at 61. McCaffrey, the Washington's not great versus the run. The price is a little steep, but as Gurley's 10K, so like it's still a 2K, it's $1,700 difference off Gurley. And then on the Washington side, I like Alex Smith at 5,400. I like AP. Carolina's been bad against versus the run. I don't mind stacking Alex Smith up with a guy like Jordan Reed.
Okay. I can see that. I mean, to give you some, your stance some push there. The 73% of the bets are currently on the over right now, so we can see this line jump a little bit. But I think there are so many other great spots on the slate that kind of staying away from this game. I agree with you. I think Funchess without Olsen is always going to see much more volume. He's far more productive. I'm not too sure. He's expected to see Quentin Dunbar, which ranks pretty high over at Pro Football Focus, and it's not showing as a positive matchup here for him. So that does concern me.
Get lit up though,
huh?
I just seen Quentin Dunbar get lit up though.
He did, but by who?
No, I know, I get that, but I'm just saying, like, I think the wide receiver cornerback matchup, people's put way too much emphasis into that. You know what I mean? Like if they're not throwing, I don't know. Unless an offense is like, all right, we can't throw at Patrick Peterson, like, you know what I mean? But like I don't think offenses are going to go if the game script, which isn't the game. Well, Carolina's +1, so Vegas sees them playing from behind. Like they probably are going to throw. I think like I'm not like going to be afraid of roster Funchess because of Quentin Dunbar.
Yeah, I mean he's not. I mean, and he is. Look, your defense, he's super cheap. You know, you're talking about 4,900. You know, Funchess here, so at least 7 targets in each of the last 3 games. So listen, the volume is there. He is obviously more productive with Olsen. Off the field, but this is the problem. Olsen is expected to return this week. He was able to practice in full today. So that just concerns me. Again, I can see.
I missed that piece of information. So.
Olsen's coming back this week. He practiced. It's one of those things where I could see the play because of the price, but I can't go there. I rather pay $100 less for someone like Sanu in a better game environment and get similar production, I think. But again, this is you're talking about the tournament. You're talking about focusing on a game that has totally low ownership. It's not going to have a ton. Look, one of the first things I said is I don't have a ton of interest here, so you're going to get definitely low owned players here. So I can totally see that. McCaffrey always in play for me, guys. I just regardless of the matchup, I know his usage is just through the roof. So that just to me it's gonna set a very high floor on a week to week basis. The ceiling might be capped in poor matchups, but that's fine. I'm okay with playing him. Are you making anyone on this in this game a core play?
No, I just think it's interesting for tournaments. Like I just see that there's upside. You said it yourself. 73% of the bets are on the over. Like this game's going to be low owned. Like it has to be considered. I think that Atlanta Tampa Bay game is fool's gold, but I might be wrong. I wasn't wrong last week. I don't know. It's just I get when it lands in these big spots. I'm not going to go there. That's my decision at this point.
No, I hear you. I hear you.
For other ways to kind of pivot off that game. So
there is, and we're gonna get to some of those. I told you, I alluded to. I had a quarterback that I have interest in that price range. Jameis Winston, actually cheaper. I'm ready to move on to the next game. If you are, unless you have any final thoughts here.
No.
I actually before we move on, no. I'm sorry, that's the wrong game. All right, move on to the next game. Seattle at Oakland. This game is a 48.5 over-under. It's actually jumped up a point from what it opened. The Seahawks are 2.5-point favorites on the road. They have a 25.5 implied team total. The Raiders have a 23 implied team total. Talk to me about this game, Bobby. You mentioned Russell Wilson. Does that mean you have interest in Russell Wilson this week?
I like both quarterbacks in this game. Carr, Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin, Jordy. I wish I could like Amari Cooper, but I
think he's an interesting tournament play.
Like I like him, but like, come on, man, you got to get it.
you're either going to get a big or bad game. I mean, just it is what it is.
And I think Carson's a borderline cash game play, but extremely borderline. The problem with Seattle is that they want to run the football, like you said. So I don't know. Wilson kind of scares me. I'd probably be, now that I'm thinking about it, I'd probably be more apt to roster Carr at a $600 differential, and hopefully he gets it done for me.
I think Carson's a very strong play this week. Very affordable, pretty much 4,400. And when you look at this matchup, it's pretty good against a Raiders defense that has struggled against the run, allowing over 100 rushing yards per game here. And when you look at Carson in week 3, over 20 touches, over 100 yards and a touchdown. He sat out, I believe it was week 4 with a hip injury, if I'm not mistaken. Then he came back week 5 and had another big performance for over 100 yards. So
he's a good running back.
I think he I think right now he's the best running back in this
I
backfield.
don't know why they drafted Rashad Penny in the first round. Like,
I think that was just. I agree with you wholeheartedly there. I mean, it didn't make any sense. I think what they just wanted to just have running backs. Because at the end of the day, this team has succeeded when they run first.
They have no offensive line, so it's like
they messed up by making that trade for Jimmy Graham a couple of years ago. That's what they did. They let go of the anchor of that offensive line, and it just goes to show you how guys that we don't take into consideration on our fantasy drafts make a huge difference here, because that offensive line was key. And as soon as they traded for Jimmy Graham and they gave up their center, they couldn't run the ball. So that just goes to show you. I think Carson's an interesting, play here. I think there are several tournament plays from both sides of the ball here. You mentioned you like Doug Baldwin. I think he's fairly priced. I think he makes sense here. He has a pretty good one-on-one matchup. I like Cooper. I like Cooper as a tournament flyer. He's going to be completely unowned, and we've seen his upside. He's been very hit or miss. So there's a ton of risk involved, but there's a nice ceiling here in this matchup for a defense that hasn't really been stout against the pass this season. So Cooper is interesting to me, especially if the Raiders, who are expected to be trailing in this game, are going to be chasing points and throwing the ball. So I think Cooper is an interesting high upside tournament play. He's not a core play of mine. At this time, there's really no core plays for me. Carson might become that. I'm going to do a little bit more digging, but Carson might become that because this is a really good matchup, a really good potential game script here. So, and his price is just, there's very little he can do to let you down at that price point. And if we're trying to pay up for someone like a Matt Ryan, we're trying to pair him up with someone like a Julio Jones, he makes a lot of sense here at this price. Not to mention, we have a 5-figure player this week who has just been playing lights out, and we might want to pay up for him. I don't know if I am, but 10K Todd Gurley. If you're going to try to fit someone like that in, you got to go for players like Carson, and we talked about Sanu, you talked about Funches. So I don't know. I think Carson's in a really good spot here at 4,400. Anything else? I know Jared Cook has been playing pretty well this season. 5K is a tad too much for me. Do you agree with that, or do you see it differently?
No, I'm with you. I think it's too much.
Yeah. Anything else here? Look, I'm not gonna hate on anyone that wants to play Tyler Lockett. I just think that price is a little bit too much. I know he's been efficient. He has scored at least a touchdown in each of the actually in all but one game this season. So he's been efficient, but I'm probably not going to go there this week.
No, I like Lockett. I think he'll be in my player pool.
Yeah. I might change my tune there. Because I do think the matchup is fine for him. It's just a matter of whether I want exposure to him or other receivers in that range,
No, I get you.
But I agree. I think he should be in your player pool this week, and he does have a 20% advantage rating according to Pro Football Focus in this matchup here. So, pretty good spot. Anything else you want to discuss here before we move on to the next game?
No, let's get into the next game.
We got the Colts heading to New York to take on the Jets. 45 over under. The Jets are 2.5 point favorites here. They have a 23.75 implied team total. Colts have a 21.25 implied team total. I have a core play of mine as of right now in this game. But before I talk about him, give me your thoughts here, Bobby. What are you looking at? Is this a game you have a ton of exposure to, or kind of one you're not really too interested in?
Look at this game.
Huh?
I think you just have, I don't know, in terms of tournaments, if you're not going to be totally invested in Tampa Bay and Atlanta, these are two quarterbacks that I have to consider. I wanted to play Darnold last week. I just didn't. I don't know. So Yeah, I'm looking at this game. I like Luck. They're going to be playing from behind at home, like T.Y. Hilton. He's doubtful. I'm sorry. Um, no, I don't know. You're getting Chester Rogers cheap, Ryan Grant. These guys are going to see targets. Neiman Hines have seen 10 targets at 5,100 last week versus the Patriots. If you suspect they're going to be playing from behind, it's not the worst play. Then on the Jets side, if Crowell plays, he's a good play. The Jets look like they want to run the football, ran for over 200 yards last week. Robbie Anderson, man, like I don't know.
Oh man, that's tough, man. It's tough. You saw the kind of upside he brings to the table last week,
Yeah. So
Just
like
can't
that
put
was
it together.
I don't want to be late to the party, but I think at 4,600, like I don't think it matters. Quincy Anoon was another guy, very high in terms of his air yards output. I don't know. I don't hate this game as pivoting off. It's in a dome. I think there's
It's actually no. It's in New York.
Oh, it's in New York. I'm sorry. I read
No, it's okay.
My fault. I said at the top that for some reason I thought the Colts were at home. No, then that kind of changes things. But still, I still like this game. I don't know. I still like this game.
Yeah, I think there's value to be had here. T.Y. Hilton's unlikely to play. Jack Doyle's unlikely to play this week. You talked already about Neiman Hines here. I just think it's a smash spot for him. The Jets, listen, the Jets are a respectable defense, but they've allowed 34 receptions to running backs this season, which is amongst the top 10 in the league. Hines just is a big part of this passing offense. I think he has at least 5 targets in all but one of the games, and at least 5 catches in all but one game. So he clearly is very involved here in this offense in the passing game. If the game environment is where they're going to be chasing points here, he's going to be receiving targets out of the backfield. At 5,100, I think we saw him have a pretty good game a couple weeks ago. We saw 20-plus 20-point fantasy performance, actually 28.3, 16 last week. He's only 5'1" over at DraftKings here. So in a good spot, 20 targets in the last 2 games, 16 catches. And he also ran the ball 15 times last week. So they're gonna give him the ball. He's gonna have the opportunity. He leads all the running backs in this backfield in snaps percentage. So I do think Hines is gonna get plenty of opportunity here. This is why I say I don't know if I want to pay for someone like a Lockett this week, because you got Chester Rogers 4,500 in a pretty good matchup here. When you look at his one-on-one matchup, it is against Buster Skrine, who ranks well below average at Pro Football Focus. Rogers had 11 targets last week, 11 targets the week before that.
He can catch the ball.
Oh, he caught 8 of them. Pretty high percentage there. He's not going to get you a ton of yardage, but he caught 8 of 11 in each of the last 2 games. So it's pretty high.
He dropped at least 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's the thing. He drops the touchdowns. He catches the passes that he doesn't need to catch, but he drops the touchdowns. So yeah, there's risk involved, but it's 4,500. And again, you mentioned it. This team. Well, he dropped 6 passes in the last 2 games, so all 6 of them might have been touchdown passes. So we don't know that, but we saw. I did see it last week too. Every time, actually, it's funny because I faded him in the showdown, and I clearly I vividly remember when he dropped the touchdown. I was like, yes, thank goodness, because I didn't have any exposure to him, and he was pretty highly owned.
What about Pascal? He was targeting Pascal in that game quite a bit.
Yeah, I feel a little bit more comfortable about someone like Raj than I do about Pascal. He did get targeted 7 times last week, 10 times the week before that, but he only came down with 1 catch last week, man. That's deflating for me, man. It really is.
Who was on him?
Gilmore. Might have been Gilmore. Yeah, it might have been Gilmore. I think all of them are in play, really. Considering the price. Ryan Grant also had, I think it was 8 or 9 targets. Eric Ebron is another guy, 15 targets last week too, man. It's just one of those things. And 2 touchdowns. He scored. He's already scored what is it? A touchdown in all but 1 game this season. He's all dinged up. He didn't practice today, so that's also worth noting, because if he's out, that's a huge chunk of targets that are going to be distributed amongst the receivers, and I think Hines. But he has from when I'm reading, it's a shin, quad, ankle, and knee injury. I guess he's all banged up, man. It looks like one of his entire legs is not doing too well. So, but yeah, man. I actually, have a little bit more interest in this game than probably the majority, and I think you do too. So that's pretty good. I think Robbie Anderson makes for an interesting tournament play. I agree with you. Sam Darnold is interesting. I'm as good of a game as Crow had last week. I'm jumping off ship here, because this is not the first time he does this. He blows up for 200 yards, and the following week 0.0 yards. Man, just 0.0 everything. So
I don't play Crowell.
Too volatile, man. I can't do it. I can't stomach it. But I wouldn't blame anyone who does. All right, ready to move on to the next game here. If you are Arizona and Minnesota game, that game it's a bit interesting. So it has a 43 over under. Vikings are 10.5 point favorites here. 26.75 implied team total. Cardinals have a 16.25 implied team total. This is an interesting spot, man. We've seen the Vikings in this similar scenario here, and they did not live up to expectations. I don't expect that to be the same outcome this week. And I'm alluding to that game where they were supposed to blow out the Bills, and that was far from the truth. Far from the truth, my friend. I like Dalvin Cook here. I think he's underpriced. My concern is, if this game does blow out, do they rest him? I think they do. But this is a phenomenal matchup for him. Arizona has really struggled this season against the run. In fact, they've allowed the 3rd most rushing yards this season to running backs. 7 rushing touchdowns, which is the most of any defense. So it's a really smash spot for Dalvin Cook. If there's going to be a game where they can move the ball, it might be this one. I know this offensive line is dealing with, it's struggling. It hasn't played well. They haven't been able to move the ball on the ground. But I think, there's upside here for someone like Dalvin Cook at under 6K that you kind of have to consider him in tournaments. What are your thoughts there, Bobby?
No, I'm with you. I like the correlation of Dalvin Cook and the Vikings defense.
Yes.
Arizona really struggles versus the run. We have the good spread. The Vikings are 10-point favorites. Usually correlates to the running backs. It's just which running back is Dalvin Cook going to be healthy the whole game? Who knows? He could pull his hamstring 3 plays in. But he's at 5,700. Let's hope he gets the carries. I think it, like you said, we have to be wary about Dalvin Cook and them resting him, but also to get this running game on track, maybe they just pound Dalvin Cook. I know it's likely hamstring injury, but they want to get they have to get the running game going, and this is the perfect spot to do it. On top of that, Adam Thielen, over 100 yards every game this season. You're going to have Patrick Peterson on Steph Diggs. Thielen should be in for a really good game, especially if they can't get the running game going or if Dalvin Cook sits. So I think Thielen's definitely, again, someone you need to consider even at the elevated price tag.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. This is one of those situations where I don't have much interest here in Arizona, but I have pretty decent interest in Minnesota. David Johnson under 6K. Listen, it's just a tough matchup, really. It's just if he's going to get it done, it's going to have to be catching passes out of the backfield. His role in that department has not been huge this season, so it does bring up some concerns for me here, which is probably why I'm not really considering him this week. And you mentioned the correlation between Cook and the Minnesota Vikings defense. I have to agree with you there. You have a rookie quarterback on the road against a pretty stout defense. So I agree with you. I think that's kind of the way to go. I'm never going to talk anyone off of guys like Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. Probably not where I'll be going this week. I'd kind of rather focus on the run game that has struggled in a really good matchup here and take the low ownership, because I still think guys like Thielen and Diggs here are going to receive some ownership simply because of how good they've been.
No, yeah, I'm with you. I think that'll also be the case.
Aside from that, man, not much else here for me. It's one of those kind of games that it's, in my opinion, is pretty straightforward. Any other thoughts here before we move on to the next game?
Now let's get on. Is it Chicago and Miami?
No, man, we'll talk about that one shortly after that. But this is a pretty good one. It's Pittsburgh at Cincinnati, division game here. 52.5 over under. The spread has gone down. Not the spread. I'm sorry. The over under has gone down 1.5 since it opened. It's worth noting the betting is 50-50 right now, so it's pretty close. Bengals have a 27.5 implied team total. The Steelers have a 25 implied team total. Talk to me, Bobby.
Are the Bengals good? Like, are we going to say they're a good football team at this point?
I think they're a respectable team.
That bad at this point. I don't know.
I think they're a respectable team. I think they're good. I think they're one of the best teams in the AFC. Okay. You know, I think maybe a top 3-4 team in the AFC, maybe. Listen, I
don't really trust him I don't know.
I was expecting this offense to be better this season. We're not going to sit here and lie and say I expected them to be as good as they've been playing. But Bill Lazor has done a pretty good job here as the offense coordinator for the Bengals. And I think that's worth pointing out. Now, this is the thing. They're without two key pieces, in my opinion. Tyler Eifert out for the season. Gio Bernard's not playing this weekend. Those are two key pieces that was making this offense roll.
So was Mixon game lock?
I think Mixon is in a fine spot. I don't want to say he's a cash game lock. But I do think he is a fine cash game play. The thing is, like, I don't know how I would want to roster my cash game lineup just yet, because there is value at both positions. I think there's players with safe floors. It's just who you're prioritizing. Like, you know, are you prioritizing Joe Mixon 7,500 or for 600 more, or someone like a Mike Evans, who I think also has a huge, like a pretty high floor, you know, in cash. We're not talking, the ownership doesn't really matter. You could play them both too, you know. And you also, you know, Melvin Gordon, who is a little bit pricier. I still think you have to consider him in cash, even though it's not as great of a matchup. You know, Cleveland has respectable run defense, I guess. But we'll get to that game when we get there. But I think Mixon's a fine cash game play, man. I really do. I think Connor is in play again this week as well. Obviously, the matchup is not as great as it was last week, but listen, he struggled, you know, in the games before last week. He did struggle, but it's not like he wasn't involved. In fact, you know, last week they gave him the rock in between the tackles. Prior to last week, though, he only had 4 targets, which is the lowest amount of targets he's had all season in a game. This guy is involved in the passing game. He's going to run in between the tackles. And so long as his game doesn't get out of hand, and I think, you know, he's going to be fine. And right now, if you look at the Vegas numbers, it should be a close game here. So I think Connor's in a fine play, or in a fine position. You can play him. I wouldn't recommend him in cash, but I think he's a fine tournament play. One of my core plays is in this game, though. And it is Tyler Boyd. I just, you know, 6K is way too cheap here for him, I think. When you look at what he's done this season, it's just, you know, impressive. He's actually tied with AJ Green in targets with 43, which is 20. They both account for 23% of the target share each. He's had at least Boyd has had at least 90 receiving yards in all but 2 games. It's a really, really good matchup here. The Steelers have, they're allowing over 45 DraftKings fantasy points per game. They've allowed 8 receiving touchdowns, over 1,000 yards for receivers this season already. He's expected to line up against Mike Hilton. Just so many great things here for Boyd, and I like his price tag quite a bit. I do expect this to be pretty high scoring. I am a little concerned here about that line movement, but to me, Boyd still makes for a fine play. We've just seen the Steelers struggle against the pass this season, and they're on the road here. So I expect Bengals to come out firing on all cylinders and Boyd to have a big game here. I don't mind someone like A.J. Green, but to me, if I'm playing anyone, and it's going to be Boyd. I actually have him as a core play of mine this week.
No, I don't hate the Boyd call at all, especially when you find out that he's matched A.J. Green in targets. I like Boyd. I like the 2K price discount off Green in this game. I like Juju a lot in this game. Let people down last week. He's in a good spot, I think. But the thing is, Ben on the road, obviously the home road splits are drastic, especially with 1 o'clock games. Ben has really struggled in 1 p.m.s on the road. So that would be my only issue off Juju or AB. So I think Connor, like you said, is probably the Pittsburgh guy that you kind of want to, as could be the fringe cash game play or the cash game play if you decide to go that route. But I still don't hate like the receivers.
Yeah, I don't dislike the receivers here at all. I think receivers from both sides are in play. Obviously, I respect this, this Bengals secondary. That doesn't mean I'm going to shy away from guys like Smith-Schuster or Antonio Brown.
But this seems like another game like Atlanta and Tampa Bay where a lot of ownership is going to be directed here. And like I don't know, I just don't trust these quarterbacks. Like there's numbers to back up not trusting them. Like let other people go there and find value in other spots in tournaments. Like that's how I see it. I don't know.
But do you think someone like Tyler Boyd's going to be popular? Because if you do think that, then that will probably change the way I approach it. Because I do think this game has a higher probability to disappoint as far as production is concerned, overall production from the game is concerned, than the Tampa Bay and Atlanta game.
See, I think Tampa Bay and Atlanta has more of a – I don't know, man. Atlanta just doesn't do it for me. I know they're in the Dome, Tampa – I think they both could disappoint. They both could go under, and if you go in another direction, they could be, and you hit an over, like you're in a good spot.
Yeah. Any quarterbacks here in play for you?
Not really. Maybe Dalton, but like I said, I don't like rostering Andy Dalton at all. Like, I just don't. In the game, the spread doesn't fit. It looks like Pittsburgh is going to be the team playing from behind, according to Vegas. Vegas is pretty much Bible. So for me, in terms of cash and stuff, so I don't know how much I like Dalton.
All right, man. Now, anything else? Any tight ends here? Nothing for me, to be honest with you. My tight end pool is very, very limited this week. So, we talked about Hooper and Brate. Those are 2 guys, and I'll be probably focusing quite a bit this week on. Anything else in this game that will be?
I like Vance. Huh? Vance probably. I had my highest scoring week was probably on a Monday, Thursday with Vance. So never disliked Vance, and he did well for me in the playoffs last year versus Jacksonville. So I don't hate Vance at all. But he hasn't had good games versus the Bengals. I think they've held like 4 catches. So albeit he's played in 2, but. I don't know. He'd be the only tight end that I consider in this game. I'm not going to chase Uzoma or Croft or any of that stuff.
Okay. Anything else here before we move on to the next game? We have we're still not going to get to the Dolphin game yet. We got a couple more games to go before then. But this next game is one that I have a lot of interest in here. And it's the Chargers heading to Cleveland to take on the Browns. A 44.5 over-under. It's a 21.75 implied team total for the Browns, 22.75 implied team total for the Chargers. They're a 1-point favorite on the road. 60% of the bets are currently on the over. I alluded to earlier that if I was pivoting to a quarterback, it would be someone. Yes, Baker. Listen, the kid looks like. The kid looks like, and I hope he's. Do you think he's going to be chalky? I don't think so.
I hope not, because I love this game for tournaments. I think this is
Me too.
fantastic. This is the
Me too.
Like you said. I want to. This would be the game that I'm looking at.
Listen, there's both quarterbacks in this game are viable pivot plays from Winston. You got Rivers at 5,900, Baker Mayfield at 5,500. I have them both projected at 5 to 8% ownership.
Me too.
All right, that's what I have them. So if that's the case, I love them both in tournaments. I just really do. Baker Mayfield, he looks like the real deal, man. He's producing quality numbers. 295 yards, passing yards in week 4, 342 passing yards in week 5, over 40 attempts in each of those games. Last week, he put up over 300 passing yards against a Baltimore defense that I think is very stout against the pass.
Who's backing with Baker?
That is what. Okay, that's. You remember I told you at the beginning of the show. I have a guy. I just don't know how to stack it because obviously you got to think Jarvis Landry because that's where the majority of the targets are going. But he has a pretty tough matchup here, in my opinion. It's when you look at the matchup, it's tough. It really is. But you can't deny, week 4, he had 10 targets with Baker Mayfield. Week 5, 10 targets. The production hasn't been there, but I'm probably just going to pair him with Landry and let it be because I know that's where the targets are going to go. I like Njoku here, but the matchup is not all that great. He hasn't been productive. It's tough to trust someone like an Antonio Callaway. Higgins is out, so it's just one of those situations where
Willies.
Yeah, is that where you're going?
No, it's not where I'm going, but threw the ball to him a lot.
Yeah, 5 targets last week. It's good to point that out because I didn't even go all that far down, but yeah, he got 5 targets last week. But I still think if you're going to play Baker Mayfield, it's going ahead and taking the just knowing that Landry might have a limited ceiling because the matchup is not all that great. However, the targets are going to be there, so there is a nice floor, and I think Landry's fairly priced considering his role in this offense here. So Chargers have struggled this year against the pass, man. They're 16th in DVOA, and it's just one of those situations where I do think they're a better defense than the numbers show, but eventually we're going to have to just trust these numbers and go with the numbers, and the numbers are suggesting that this is a good matchup here. So I like it. And do you? I think we're on the same page here, right?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I like this game a lot. I think he now needs to get in the end zone. I think it's going to happen this week. I think he's had a touchdown week 1, and that's pretty much it. So, yeah, he hasn't found the end zone since the season opener here, but caught 8 passes last week. Was targeted 9 times, 90 yards. I talked about Melvin Gordon at 8,200. You just gotta consider him. Over 20 touches, pretty much. Hyde.
Man, that's tough, man.
I like Hyde here.
I like his price. 17. Yeah, 19 touches last week. He's had over 20 touches in each of the last 3 games. So yeah, or actually no, 19 last week, but just about 20. Averaging over 20 touches. In each of the last 3 games. So to me, it's a matter of if they can play with a lead or if they can keep it close. And that's kind of what we have to ask ourselves here. Vegas suggests that they will.
Are you afraid that they might stay under or not be as high scoring? Because that's a fear for me. I think Cleveland's defense is better than what we're seeing. And then the Chargers defense is also a very dynamic defense outside of. Is Joey Bosa back by any chance, or is he still out?
I believe he's still out. I don't think he's going to be playing this week, but I can double check that.
I don't think he's. I remember I seen I had a notification with his name, but I don't think it indicated that he was playing at all. I don't remember off the top of my head.
I'm looking right now.
Trying to shy away from.
No, he's out. He's expected to be sidelined until week 9, so no Bosa this week. Again, I agree with you. I think that both of these defenses might be a little bit better than what they look like so far. But I still think that when you look at, and that's kind of why I'm like I'm not saying this is a game I'm totally all in it, but I do like both quarterbacks. I do think both quarterbacks are very, very reasonably priced here. I think Melvin Gordon's usage just gives him an edge pretty much every week. So even in subpar matchups, he has to be considered. There's a safe floor there. And that's why I'm only focusing here on Jarvis Landry or Keenan Allen. You know, if I'm playing Rivers, is going to be pairing him up with Keenan Allen. If I'm playing Mayfield, it's going to be with Landry. I lean more towards the Mayfield Landry because I'm saving plenty of money by doing that. And I think there's just as much upside this week with them. So I like them both quite a bit. I'm not too keen on the run game for either side. But again, it's just a matter of when you have a running back that has such a high floor and so much usage like Melvin Gordon, you have to consider him pretty much every week.
This week.
That what?
No.
If it was up to you, you just take him out of the player pool.
Never play him. Never, ever. It's such a bad decision, dude.
Nah, listen.
I know the second I play him, it's just like burn my money.
Look, I want to point out, Njoku has had at least 7 targets in each of the games that Mayfield has started. So he's another guy. I mentioned the two tight ends.
Njoku.
I wouldn't mind. It's just the Chargers have been pretty solid against tight ends this season. So it makes it somewhat tough. They've only allowed 1 touchdown, only 19 receptions. So they've been pretty solid against tight ends this season. However, I do think that that's a really good way to stack this offense if you're interested in Baker Mayfield and save yourself some cash and have plenty to spend in other positions in other matchups. And then again, you can go after guys like Mike Evans, guys like Julio Jones who are going to be chalky, but you're already finding a unique build because you're instead of playing Winston and instead of playing Cameron Brate, you're going with Baker Mayfield and Njoku. So kind of that's how you can be different in this situation and in this matchup. Do you agree with that?
No, I'm with you.
Okay.
I think it's a good way to differentiate yourself. Definitely.
Yeah, 100%. Any final thoughts here before we move on to the next game?
No, that's pretty much it. This is a good game, though.
Yeah, I think so too. You got Buffalo heading to Houston to take on the Texans, a 41 over-under. The Texans are a 10-point favorite. They have an implied team total of 25.5 points. Bills have a 15.5 implied team total. One of those games where I don't have much interest in, and maybe it's a mistake of mine, maybe it's a mistake of my process. I kind of want to like Lamar Miller if he plays, if he's a full go, if he's, gonna receive the bulk of the carries, but Alfred Blue was pretty successful last week, so I don't know how they're going to, and not successful in the sense of running the ball, but he caught 8 of 8 for 73, so he was successful in the passing game here for the Texans. So I don't know if they're gonna split the carries here. I really don't know how they're gonna approach the run game, but I do think that a running back here can certainly go off against a really bad Bills defense.
No, yeah, I get that. I'm just not going to do it with Lamar Miller. I don't think the Texans' running game has been what I'd like it to be. That was it Sunday night? That game was awful, absolutely terrible to watch. I like Deshaun, I guess, just because I don't think they have much of a running game, even though the Bills don't do much. The Bills are pretty bad against the run. I still like the passing game. Still rather the passing game. But I'd rather go if I wanted to get exposure to the ground game for the Texans. I'd look for Deshaun and his legs before I look for Lamar Miller.
Yeah, it's one of those games I don't have a ton here. To be honest with you, I'm kind of just it's worth noting Hopkins questionable, Fuller questionable, Kiki Kute questionable. So I don't know if there's any serious, if there's any of them in serious jeopardy to miss this game, but I just don't think it's necessary to go here. Can they go off? Are they in a good spot? Yeah, but is the game environment really a favorable one for any of these guys? My answer is no there.
Yeah, Texans D and cash is like what I'd look at, and that's pretty
correct.
Much.
Yeah, and that was going to be my final thoughts there. 3,500 Texans defense, cash or tournament. Really, I if they're going to be high on, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I have nothing else here, man. If you have anything else you want to throw in there, go ahead.
I'm not big on this game.
All right, then let's talk about the game you've been waiting for the entire night, man. The Chicago Bears heading to Miami to take on the Dolphins here. This is one of those games, man, where I don't know what to think.
I like Chicago was the first tag that I looked at, and then I was like, oh, they're going to Miami. It's always tough to play in Miami. Guys go out, they get messed up, and they want to play on Sunday, and it just never turns out good. So then I kind of rethought it, but yeah, I don't know. I like Kenny Stills on Miami's side, I can tell you that much. 47.
Yeah. Look, so I'll give you the numbers here, and then you tell me what you think after you listen to this. So this game's opened at 44 over under. It's 42 over under at this time with 60% of the bets.
Playing this game.
60% of the bets on the under. The Dolphins have an implied team total of 19.25 points. They are 3.5 point dogs here at home. A 22.75 implied team total for the Bears. This to me, I respect both of these defenses. In fact, I think the Bears have an elite defense, and I think the Miami Dolphins have a pretty solid defense. So it's just one of those games where I don't know if there's going to be a ton of productivity from either offense. I'm not going to chase these Trubisky points that we saw a couple weeks ago. That was against the Bucks. I'm not expecting that to happen again. I do have interest in Tariq Cohen. The only thing in here is I just don't know if the game environment is going to be one that favors him. But the Dolphins do struggle against running backs and against pass catching backs. They're just soft in the middle of the field sometimes.
No one's
Howard.
Yeah,
that's why I brought up Cohen Tariq Cohen here because I want to talk to you about both backs. I kind of want to open this discussion. Aside from those guys, I really don't have a ton of interest in this game. To be quite honest with you, it's just the running backs for Chicago, but it's picking the right one. If you think this is going to stay close and you think there's going to be some points scored, I don't think that's going to be the case. Tariq Cohen makes a lot of sense. I like him in tournaments because I think there's tons of upside. However, his usage last week was a little bit higher than normally, and I think a lot had to do with the game script. They didn't feel the need to play Howard because they were or not last week. It was the game before, before their bye week. But I don't think they felt the need to play Howard because of the game environment. They were just winning by a ton of points. So why put Howard on the field? And it's just against a really bad defense. So I think they're going to grind it out with Howard, and I think that's a good call on your end because he's 6,500. He's not going to see a ton of ownership. And while he struggled last game, he received 24 carries in week 3. He touched the ball 17 times in week 2. He touched the ball 20 times in week 1. He's still getting the carries here. He's still getting the touches.
I'm afraid. The thing is I'm afraid of Miami as a home dog. You know what I mean? That's what I'm afraid of.
So you think that this game can get out of control?
No, I don't think the scoring can. I just think that they can play well, and I don't know.
Well, this is the thing. If they're grinding it out, I think Howard's going to be the guy in there. What does concern me is if they want to change up the pace and they want to kind of move the ball at a quicker pace or run a hurry-up offense. I don't know how often they do that, but if they want to do something, that Cohen's going to be on the field. I don't know. I think both are viable options. None are a core play of mine, but I think both are viable options. I think Howard makes for a strong tournament play, man.
Yeah,
I think there's upside there. I think, it's a Miami defense that, although I respect them, I do think they struggle a bit more against the run. In fact, they're allowing over 100 rushing yards per game this season. So,
You get to watch that pounding on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm going to be witnessing that. I actually got invited to the game, but I can't make it, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. No, I liked when I first looked at this game after you said the total dropped. Like, I have no interest, like pretty much no interest, but outside of maybe Howard and Terrence, but Trubisky, Burton, and Gabriel I thought were pretty interesting. But if the total dropped 2 points, like, yeah, forget that.
And I know Drake is coming off a big game, but this is just not the matchup for him. He only carried the ball 6 times last week. He did most of his damage through the air with 11 targets.
I don't understand what they're doing. I have no idea. He's too
neither do I,
man. He gets 6 carries.
Neither do I. Listen. I think both defenses are viable options here. Dolphins are 2,600. I think they're a viable option. I think the Bears are also a viable option this week. So that's pretty much where I'm at. Burton's in a good spot. He's just, I rather pay down or pay up. Kind of where I'm at. I rather either pay down or pay up. He did score a touchdown in the last game against the Bucks. Scored one in week 2 as well. Been pretty efficient, but I'm not going to go there. This is a good matchup for him. I do want to point that out against the Dolphins here, but not someone I'll be rostering a ton. How about you?
No, I like Burton. I think Burton's going to get in the end zone, to be perfectly honest, regardless of what the total is. I think Burton's going to get in the end zone versus Miami this week. He's the first guy that I picked out. Even though the line moved, I still think he's going to get in. I don't think Trubisky's going to have the ceiling that I thought he would have if the line had moved in a positive direction. But I don't hate Burton. If you want to go there at tight end, I'd probably go lower, but I don't hate it. So I'm not going to – if someone told me they wanted to play Burton, I wouldn't be against it.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next game. The Rams at Denver taking on the Broncos. I know you mentioned earlier you have a little bit of interest in Goff. I can see why. This game has a 52-point over-under. The Rams have a 29.5 implied team total. The Broncos have a 22.5 implied team totals. Rams are 7-point favorites on the road. I do want to point out the line has shifted only half a point down, but 72% of the bets are on the under here. So it is worth noting that.
So that isn't good for the Denver side.
Yeah. So listen, the Rams are always going to be in play for me. They're just a team. They're a well-oiled machine. I think they're fairly priced here. Goff at $6K, I think that's fair. He's efficient. He doesn't have to throw the ball a ton. He hasn't attempted over, I think it's 36 passes. Yeah, 36 passes this season. Yet he's averaging 26.2 DraftKings points per game. Has scored over 20 DraftKings points in 3 of 5 games. No fewer than 17 all season, and only 1 game under 19. So he's been very efficient despite not throwing the ball a ton. This scheme is so good. It's so good. And he has so many weapons on offense that his floor is just very, very high here.
Yeah. McVay is just playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers. And
yep.
I don't know. There's a couple of spots like Josh Reynolds, depending on the health of Kupp and Cooks, but they practiced today. So that's not the greatest news for the value, but it's Kupp and Cooks, and they're the new age greatest show on turf. If they're playing, they're viable. Robert Woods. I like Gerald Everett as a tight end punt. I was watching that Rams game, and he was looking at him a lot in the red zone. I know Higbee kind of outsnaps him, but Everett got a couple targets, so I don't hate Everett. I just don't know if those targets came before Kupp and Cooks kind of were sidelined or after. Gurley at 10K, it's not the word, it's the price sucks, but Todd Gurley seems like one of those generational running backs where he's gonna go 3 touchdowns last week, and he was 9,400. If he's gonna score 300 for 3 touchdowns versus Denver, I don't know. You probably want to roster him. I don't know. I'm probably not going to roster much Gurley except in tournaments this week. I'll probably be with the field.
Yeah, I think it's a tough cash game play, but
yeah, there's no way I'm playing him in cash.
But Broncos usually funnel to the pass, but this season, man, they've allowed 671 rushing yards to running backs, 5 rushing touchdowns. They've really struggled against the run here. Just makes this, and that's why I think he's 10K, man, because that's taken into consideration in the algorithm here for DK. So it's just one of those things where he's priced up, but it's like when and I know you play NBA as well, like me. It's just when Russell Westbrook is priced up, and he's going to triple double. I mean, he's going to triple double. It's going to happen, and you decide that you want to pay up for him if you find enough value. And I think this slate does provide plenty of value to consider someone like Gurley at 10K. Clearly the best running back in the game right now. I think, especially now, he's in a league of his own. I know Kamara was there with him the first 4 weeks, but with Mark Ingram back, I think that changes the quite a bit. Yeah, I think it changes the dynamic, and I think it's going to be Gurley pretty much every week priced up, above 9K, and everyone else below him.
Anyone on the Broncos side?
Man, I like maybe like I wouldn't mind Emmanuel Sanders. I wouldn't mind Demaryius Thomas just because I feel like they're going to be chasing points here. But which one of the two do you prefer? I probably go with Sanders. I just think that the connection with Keenum is better. For Sanders, I think he just plays better into Keenum's strengths. But I don't know, man. I'm not too high on either of the two. I think Sanders' price is a little bit steep for me, 6,700. Thomas is 5,800, but he's just been very hit or miss. And in the last 3 weeks after receiving 10 and 11 targets in the first 2 games, it's been 5, 7, 6. I know he scored last week and he got 105 yards, but I don't know, man. It's just really tough. They are going to be chasing points. They are going to be, playing from behind, I think. So definitely merit into playing either of the two. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. They are going to be chasing, so it doesn't – I like Thomas's price, but I'm not really – I don't love Sanders's, but Sanders is going to be – he's not going to get either Akib or Peterson or Peter.
No, he's going to get who is it, Robbie Coleman?
Robbie Coleman, who's been all right.
Robbie Coleman? Is it Robbie Coleman? Yeah, he's been decent. But Sanders has a 17% advantage rating on Pro Football Focus there. So I don't think this is a great matchup for them by any means. So if I'm gonna fit them in, I'm just going to take the discount on Thomas because I do think that there's plenty of upside there. We saw it last week. So even though he has probably the worst matchup, but I'm saving 900 by going from Sanders to Thomas. So to me, it's more about the Rams. I do like, Gurley. I think Goff is fine. If you're stacking Goff, you said Woods would be your guy. He's 6,900. I think so too. He has a pretty good one-on-one matchup here against Bradley Roby, who ranks well below average. Kupp has a tough matchup. Chris Harris lines up a lot out of the slot here, 72%. Kupp plays 73% of his snaps on the slot. I just think that the targets are high percentage targets, so he's going to convert even in tough coverage. A high percentage of them. He has good hands. Him and Goff clearly have a good chemistry here, so I'm okay with going with either of the two. I think Brandon Cooks would probably be the least likely I'd play of this group. Any thoughts there? Any do you think differently on that approach?
I'm with you. I don't think you can really go wrong with either of these receivers, all 3 of these receivers, though, especially with the team total.
Yeah, I kind of agree there, man. So anything else here? I think the Rams defense is viable. I'm not going to be playing them, but I think they're a viable defense.
I like Goff and Woods stacks. That's kind of what I was looking at.
I agree with you. I think Woods is a fine play this week.
I think Woods is going to probably be the lowest owned of these receivers, hopefully. Maybe not. Maybe none of them.
I think it depends on the statuses here.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. No, I'm sorry. He's probably
We got I think he could be chalk if Cooks and
yeah.
or Cup misses this game. They both were limited in practice, so it's a matter. They were limited in practice today, so it's just a matter of whether they can get on the field or not on Sunday. I think that's
price tag like at 5%. If Cup like does what he has to do versus Chris Harris, you could be in a good spot if you stack him with.
Yeah.
Stack him with Goff. I think Goff's like a extremely strong play. I think everyone's going to go to Winston. I just think Goff is like the play.
Yeah.
Because he's going to throw it like 10 times. So like you could stack off with Gurley. You know, I know some people look at that as a negative correlation, but that's 16K of your cap. The only problem.
I think if you go Cup and Gurley, you're just going to get all of the points for this offense. So it's not a bad way to do it, especially Gurley's involvement in the pass game. So that's kind of like it is negative correlation, but I think there's exceptions to that rule.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like I feel like there's a definite exception to that rule, especially with this situation. He's going to get 10. He's highly targeted. Like look at his target totals. They're like through the roof.
I mean, Gurley has scored 9 touchdowns this season. 2 have come, out of pass catches, or receiving touchdowns. So it's going to happen. It's going to happen. He has 30. What is it? Look, so 39, 31, 51, 73, and 36 receiving yards. 3, 3, 5, 4, 4 catches. He's involved. You're to me, that's not negative correlation in this specific instance.
Especially with this pass rush, even though they're not what they used to be, like just to dump off to kind of slow down the pass rush is something that I think is very viable, and McVay knows that, and he'll utilize that. So,
yeah,
I don't know. Or just running at the pass rush, but I don't know.
I think either way, I think Gurley's going to be obviously highly involved in this game. And if you like, someone like Goff and you want to put him in there, and maybe you don't want to pay 69 for Woods and these questionable receivers, you don't feel too comfortable. I'm okay with doing that. I'm okay with doing Goff and Gurley and just letting it be like that. To be honest with you, probably not something I'm gonna like invest highly in. But if you're running multiple lineups like you do, I think plugging a couple of those, Gurley Goff stacks, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
On to this next game, Baltimore Ravens at the Titans. 42 over under here. 62% of the bets are on the under. The Ravens are 2.5-point favorites on the road. They have an implied team total of 22.25 points. Titans have a 19.75 implied team total. Game I am staying away from here. I just don't have any interest. I talked about John Brown last week. I liked him. He didn't pan out, but he did receive 14 targets, so the volume was there. He just did not turn that into anything, unfortunately. But if you're going to take a shot here at anyone, I probably would say him, just because he has that high upside, and he's just been pretty involved in this offense. However, it's not a spot that I'm going to be attacking this week. This is just one of those games where nothing stands out to me. There's nothing pops out at me, and I actually think the Ravens defense at 2,800 makes a lot of sense here. Talk to me about this game. Do you have a different stance than I do here?
Yeah, I like the Bills D last week versus the Titans. The Titans are at home this week, so maybe that would kind of scare me off the Ravens. They were on the road last week versus the Bills. I think that Bill Z was in the Millionaire Maker lineup last week, the one that won it. So I don't hate like the Baltimore call. I would rather the Baltimore be at home, but obviously they're not. John Brown and Michael Crabtree in terms of cash game plays are extremely viable. I don't love them for tournaments. I think that you can kind of go in another direction also because in tournaments I like to run it back, and there's really no one on the Tennessee side that I feel like I'd feel comfortable running it back with. Deion Lewis, Corey Davis, maybe Tywan Taylor. Like reaching. I don't think I'm going to get there in terms of my builds. Yeah, there's pretty much nothing that I really actually like. I'm just throwing out names.
Yeah, it's just an ugly game, man. You know, it's just one of those games where it's just, there's not a ton to really like here, at least not for me. So I'm kind of staying away here. Let's move on to the last game of the slate here. Jacksonville at Dallas. This game has a 41 over under. The Jaguars have a 22 implied team total. The Cowboys have a 19 implied team total here. Jaguars are 3-point favorites on the road. Give me your thoughts here, man. It's just one of those games, another one of those games where not a ton for me. To be honest with you, unfortunately, I know the last two games of this slate not too interesting. But anything here for you, Bobby?
Yeldon.
Okay,
but that's about it.
Yeah, I could totally see. I could totally get on board with that. You know, he's gonna get the workload here. Still think he's reasonably priced, 6,400. Although, wish I would just a little bit. You know, it's funny because he's 6,400. I'd feel so much better if he was just 6K flat. Like it feels so much better. That extra 400, just I don't know, man. Don't love it, but I do think that he's definitely in play. Zeke to me is always in play. Especially when you got him at 7K here. I just think that's too cheap. I know the matchup isn't all that great, but he's still involved in the passing game here. He's going to get the touches, the usage. They're on the road. They're favorites here. So 7 receptions last week. He's 20 carries, 25 carries the week before. He has 29 targets this season, averaging over 5 targets per game, almost 6 targets per game here. So I don't dislike someone like Elliott in tournaments because I don't think there's going to be a ton of ownership. However, I am going to temper my expectations because I do respect this Jacksonville defense quite a bit here.
Yeah,
and when you look at
great play here, I feel like.
You look at rushing yards, they've only allowed 376 on the ground this year, only 2 touchdowns, not a whole lot through the air, 0 receiving touchdowns for running backs, only 189 yards. So obviously the matchup is tough, but someone like Zeke Elliott can certainly get it done against any defense, I think, and he can just break one off without a doubt here. So that's it for me. I kind of, when you look at, someone like D.D. Westbrook, he might be a little interesting just because I believe Cole gets a tough matchup against Byron Jones here. So I don't think he's going to be very involved. So if they have to pass or if they decide, when they're passing, I think Westbrook might be pretty involved here. He didn't get much last week as far as production. Caught 3 of 5 for 55 yards, but I still think that he's in a pretty good spot here in this matchup. Any thoughts on that take right there?
Yeah, I don't hate I
don't love it. I'm just saying, like, if you're going to
passing defenses seems very strong. That's what I feel like their secondary has been elite and one of the better in the league, and I think it might be like outside of the running game, the strongest aspect of that team. So it's the only thing that scares me, and Bortles sucks.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. That's it, man. We wrapped up the slate here. Since these last 2 games were kind of like not too good. Talk to me here about so what is the game that you're probably going to be more invested in this week?
So I'm with you on Cleveland and the Chargers. I like Oakland and Seattle, and I also like I just lost it. Maybe I don't know. There's
the Rams. The Rams probably at Denver.
Rams and Denver, yeah. There's a couple. There's like 5 games that I'm probably going to pick guys from. I don't know how much Tampa Bay Atlanta I'm going to have. I'm probably going to have someone from that game. I just don't know who it is yet. I haven't figured that out yet.
I like the Tampa Bay Atlanta game. I think that's going to be one I have a lot of exposure to. I'm going to find, try to be a little different, picking players from maybe Seattle's offense, Indy's offense. I think Cincy and Pittsburgh's going to be pretty popular. So I think Cleveland's offense makes a lot of sense here. A lot of bad games on the board this week, so I think that the ownership is going to really be concentrated on
what about
maybe
the side of the ball in the Seattle game?
Yeah, I like that. I like that call a lot. Listen, I'm probably going to be playing someone like Cooper in my tournament lineups. I know it's a ton of risk.
I like that call.
I know there's a lot of risk involved there, but I'm probably going to be playing a guy like Cooper in my tournament lineups. I just think there's plenty of upside here. So that's it for us tonight, man. We do a Sunday live show every weekend at 11 a.m. at footballdiehards.com. You guys got to go check that out. This show is presented to you by footballdiehards.com. We'll go game by game again on Sunday with updated news. There's a lot of question marks here, so make sure to tune into that on Sunday. Bobby, before we sign off tonight, give everyone your Twitter handle, your Instagram, and any social media that you want the listeners to follow you at.
Bobby Gomes, DFS on Twitter and Instagram.
And I am at Armando_Marsal at both Instagram and Twitter. We look forward to seeing you guys on Sunday. If not, see you next week.